Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started today on talking about Air Force spending. This week I was trying to do a lot of Air Force stuff, and so watch for other posts and content I share. And I'll do a special announcement in a minute. But one thing I like to do is start off with a tip for success as we move forward. And today's tip, as I find my slide, is around your LinkedIn profile. So if you don't know this and you're in my training, right? And I see Carol just looking at Carol Jones, right? And hey, Carol, if somebody clicks on Carol's name, right, whatever she has there, maybe it was enough to say, well, let me go explore this person further and look at their LinkedIn profile. So when I go look at Carol's profile, the very first thing I will see will be her banner. So right at the top. And my tip for you today is to make sure you complete that banner, put something in it that says what you do. So Carol, for example, says Interstate Transportation Company, right? Or Freight Transport LLC. Whatever it is, it instantly will make somebody go, oh, this is a freight transportation company. And it's totally okay if people go, oh, I'm out of here, right? That's not what I'm looking to connect with or something. What Carol is trying to find, theoretically, are people who are interested in her ability to help with freight, etc. And so, so make sure your banner at the top says something related to what you do. That way, when people land on your profile, they're able to kind of keep going in. A good banner will drive me down to begin to look at more of your profile. That's a tip for those of you showing up early and on time. I appreciate that you do. Let me just get my ducks in a row on one thing here that I'm seeing. Well, it looks like I'm, nope. Okay, I'm good to go. And I'm going to share some of my slides in a second. Today's training is going to be around the Air Force. I get asked all the time by people, how can I see what the federal government buys? And how can I see if they buy what I sell, more importantly, right? And most of us out there who are, these people with great advice will tell you, you need to find that out. You need to find out if the government buys what you sell or who does that. It's like, well, great. Where, how can I do that? And that's kind of the purpose of today's training, right? Is to really help you figure out who buys what you sell and where. And when I say where, I mean which offices, which contracting offices, program offices, who are those people that are your customers? More specifically, one of the things that we're going to be talking about is Air Force, right? And so I want to talk today about looking at the Air Force and the spending that has happened and how you can go in and find out, what they've spent, right? And then dig further in and find out who is spent on you. When you do this research, which is the first step of my 7 steps for federal success, 7-step process for federal success. When you do this, you're going to be able to have the beginnings of a plan on where to do outreach, where to build relationships, where to find opportunities, et cetera. And so that's what we're going to dive into today. Let me just share my screen. Where's my slides? There they are. So let's get started talking about how much the Air Force, by the way, if you don't know this, the Department of the Air Force has two components under it, right? It has the United States Air Force and the United States Space Force. And those two are under the Air Force. The Navy is something similar, where it's Department of the Navy, and under that is the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps. So just understanding that basic structure will help you. In today's training, we're going to break down our time together. We got about 25 minutes left. We're going to break this down into 3 sections. First, I just want to talk to you at a high level about which tools you can use to research the spending. And so that pattern you can follow that I'm talking about. The second thing is I want to go into these actual tools and show you first from a broad level, how can you look at the spending patterns that are in there related to what you sell. And then I want to go down further and wrap up with showing you examples of niching it down. And so basically you can think of maybe looking at spending by NAICS code or PSC or something. And then the niching is niching down into words and trying to understand. I personally am a big fan of keyword search over NAICS code. NAICS code is very broad, but those are equally important things to look at. I don't want to dismiss one. I just have my favorites because when I use my favorites, I get to the information I want. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm co-founder of GovCon in a Box. an AI platform that we are bringing tools to you that match the training I've been doing for 7-8 years now. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and this is what I want for you. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our Government Contracting Success newsletter. A lot of good information. The information is always around federal sales, one way or another. How do I help you with tips and guidance on succeeding as a government contractor in the federal market? And then last thing on this slide, we've got a special guest coming tomorrow, Major General Trevino. She's coming in, head of contracting, all of Department of Air Force, right? So she's going to come in and talk about a lot of good stuff. So you can find that out, but make sure you register, and I'll talk more about that in a second as we go forward. But it'll be right here on LinkedIn. And so she's awesome to come in and share her tips for us. And most importantly, what I'm trying to do is enable you to go into her office and have a conversation, but she doesn't have time to meet with all of us. And so I will represent you, but we will all have a fireside chat. I wanted to congratulate the newest members of the 100 Club. So if you're not familiar with the 100 Club, it's a federal visibility score within govconinabox.com. We put this tool in place. It's a free tool that allows you to be able to see what your score is and then increase it to 100. You can have a score of 1 to 100. And for most companies, they're 70 and below. And there's 360,000 plus companies that are selling to the federal government. 70 or 80% of them are 70. The score is 70 and below, which makes you invisible. But OHM, Preeti here, and Turiya Technology, Benita, they just hit the 100 Club, right? And I know that they were working on it for a little bit. And this is exciting because it doesn't mean they're going to get a contract, but it means they're visible. This is the biggest problem in government contracting is really buyers just can't find you when they're looking for you. If we could increase their ability to find you, then you increase the likelihood of being invited to come in and talk about what you sell or to come in and bid on a requirement they have. So go to govconinabox.com, check out your federal visibility score, and I put tips in there with videos on what you need to do specifically for your company to get to 100. Okay, so let's talk briefly just about the tools. There's 3 tools I want to talk to you about, and really only one is the source, right? So Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS, this is what we call the system of record or the source of all data. When we do contract awards in the federal government, when I say we, I'm acting like I'm in the government, but I'm not, I'm on the other side. But when the government buyer awards a contract to you or anybody else, for the most part, they record it in FPDS. There's some limitations, but they don't matter. Those are exceptions. For the most part, all contract awards go into FPDS. And so that's why we call it a system of record. It's where the official data is. And then USA spending is this basically a pretty graphical presentation, right? Pretty, graphical presentation of that data that's in FPDS. It's got some extra data that they pull in, but most importantly to our world and our training today, USA Spending shares FPDS data in a much better, more friendly way. Not better necessarily, just more friendly. And you'll see that it's dashboards. If you're already familiar, you know what I'm talking about. And so we'll go into those 2 tools. I did want to mention that there's all sorts of third-party subscriptions out there, and I'm not opposed to them. I'm building one with GovCon in a box, not for the same subscription stuff, but a lot of the data we bring in. I'm totally okay with you paying for third-party subscriptions. If it's a convenient tool for you, great, do it. But I want you to keep in mind that all of those tools are getting their data from FPDS, from SAM, and from USA Spending, et cetera. And so make sure you understand that you have these free, powerful tools that the government provides to learn who buys what you sell and where do they buy it within their organization. So let's go ahead and dive in. Well, hold on one second. Okay, so let me just tell you about tomorrow because I just quick commercial for tomorrow. Make sure you register for this if you haven't, right? It's Thursday, October 31st at noon, right at noon. And so Major General Trevino is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Contracting. And that's the part I really liked, right? Is this whole idea of talking to somebody who's at the top level of contracting where she's responsible, kind of has functional responsibility over 8,000 people and 70 billion annually. If you look at her bio, it's just really impressive. I don't invite guests on and read their bios, but you should. right? But you should definitely come in. It'll be a good tip in there and another good chance for networking. Okay, so let me switch over and let's dive into the tools. By the way, here's GovCon in a box. One other thing, here's where you can go in and register, so you can sign up for that tomorrow. And so GovCon in box, you can go there, check out your score. But let's go to USA spending. And I'll go over to FPDS in a second. I'll show you back and forth between them all. If you're not familiar with USA spending, I just want to move a little bit slower because people are at different levels when they come in. I'll definitely show you something if you've been here a while in your experience. But USA spending is the best place to go for quick, easy access to data about the government. I'll talk about what makes FPDS great in a minute, because FPDS has got some standout functionality or features. But in USA spending, when you come in here, you click on Start Searching an Award. And as you go through here, you can begin to set it up. Oh my God. And any of you who use FPD or USA spending, you will recognize instantly that for some reason, they decided to change the fiscal years in custom. It's killing me. They just keep changing these things. But I'm going to go in and say, look, I want to look at data from FY22 and 20 or 24 and 23. So those are the last 2 fiscal years. I'm trying to see, have they been buying what I sell in the last couple of fiscal years? And so if all I do is start there for 1 second, I'm going to give it a little bit more information about filters. One thing I want to do, and I want to encourage you to do, is when you use USA spending, tell it that you're looking for contracts. You're not looking for contract vehicles. That's what the IDV is. You're not looking for contract vehicles, grants, payments, loans, etc. None of those are the things you want to do when you're talking about government contracting at the moment. So let me zoom out. The other thing we said was Air Force. And so let me just put in here, Air Force. Hopefully it'll come up. There you go. So Department of the Air Force. That's funny that it says Department of Air Force, but it's USAF. But that's more than enough information for the moment for us to show. So now I'm saying I want contracts in FY23 and 24, and I want it from the Air Force. So now the next thing I want to tell it from a broad level, what do I sell, and how can I find it? So I'm going to go into NAICS codes here. I just happen to know mine 541. So you start typing and it starts loading it up. And this is the one, right? It's a hit or miss sometimes on what you're looking at, but I can come in here and I know many times what I sell. And let's say I'm going to look at SharePoint for the moment. I can get 512, 511, and 519, right? So if I look at these 3, now I'm telling it in a broad way that I do software development, Microsoft software development, but let me use this broad category of NAICS codes. So let me submit that search. I'm going to zoom back out for a second here. And okay, so it's loaded up the results in here, and you can bounce around in different areas. If you scroll down, you'll be able to see how they organize this. Come on. The data, when the data loads, it kind of throws the page. But you can see in here, this is the part I'm going to get to in a second when it loads. So in here, I can look at different things I might want to see, but I already know I'm looking at the Air Force. So I'm curious, first off, just what the breakdown is for software development. And what it's telling me is like, okay, there's $2 billion spent, $3 billion on 541, 512. I'm like, okay, it's there. I can see it. And I can start coming down categories. One of the interesting things about the Air Force is if I look in here and I can see the place of performance, it begins to tell me where, if you look here, it begins to tell me where that heavy spending is. And so $2 billion right here in Virginia, that's the Pentagon for the most part, right? But then you begin to look and go, well, what's over there in Ohio, right? Is that Wright-Patterson or what is that? I can't remember the names of my things. Is Texas, is that Joint Base San Antonio? But just looking at some of these bits of information on, hold on. Trying to zoom out there. Just looking at some of this information, it's really helpful. But you want to pay attention to these filters, right? And so I don't really care about the recipient at the moment because I'm trying only to pay attention to the Air Force. And then if I come up further, remember I chose NAICS code, but you've got these other ones. I can look at PSC, and this is good. If you don't know PSC, you can begin to learn about it, but this is a big deal. When I just used the NAICS codes, it was pretty even. But when I'm using PSC, you can see for the most part, they're not using a PSC code. And that's kind of the frustrating part. But if I was, right, they're using, for the Air Force, they're using support professional engineering, whatever, R425. And then it comes down a little bit. But this is an interesting thing, right? It's like, why aren't you using it? And then let me come back up here. So this is where the bulk of the data is. If I come in here, I can start scrolling around, and let me see if it gives me more information. No, so this is one of the problems with Air Force being under DoD. Usually you can go into like HHS and see it's in FEMA. So in here, you've got to go in and start looking at the data. But the flip side is, and I'm not going to do it right now because it's inconsistent on how long it takes, but I can download this data, right? And if I download it, I get in a spreadsheet and I can really begin to manipulate it. But instead, I want to come over here and try to go down maybe a little bit further. So I was saying I want to do SharePoint. You see what happens when I only use the NAICS code for what I'm trying to do. I get a ton of information. But if I just come in here and put one keyword, SharePoint, and then submit that filter. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, this is hilarious. So this is not encouraging. I have to look at this and go, why on earth am I only getting this? But you see this, I only got one opportunity. In the last 2 years, one opportunity with the word SharePoint. By the way, where SharePoint is listed, when you're thinking about where they're getting this information, it comes from the description for the most part. And so if I come down here, oops, I went a little too far. If I come down here, you can see SharePoint, right? And so this is good. I can see the information, et cetera, but it's only one opportunity. It looks like a pretty decent size. If I come in here, though, I can dig a little bit more, and now I can see it's in Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, the AFLCMC, right? I'm able to go a little farther, and I can write that down and say, okay, let me figure it out. Here is the awarding agency. If you don't know this, basically, this is the buyer who uses it, and the funding office is the contracting shop. Yes, we call it the buyer, but let's call it the contracting shop and the program shop. But I could go in there and look at this. By the way, the funding office is not necessarily the contracting shop. That's a secondary thing. But what I've identified is two different areas I can then go explore more on. I might say to myself, well, okay, they awarded one big award. Let me go see what else they've done. I'm not going to do it in today's training, but I could take that information and go run my searches on that. Let me back up for 1 second. I can look at the competition on this opportunity and see it was an 8A company sole source. And so if you're an 8A company doing SharePoint, or you know one, you might want to mention this. Let's see when this guy expires really quick. So it's already expired. The end has happened. I'm curious on why it's even in there. Oh, it looks like it's got a little bit more time. Well, no, I guess it's ending right now. So that's an interesting one to go check out on why it's not there. But it was a good sized contract. Let me get rid of it though for a second. So what I said was I searched on SharePoint. I was trying to niche down. I only found one. The only thing I can think of is this NAICS code is killing me. So let me go get rid of it and see if I can't get a lot of results, or at least more results. So I'm going to search this again. All right, so still, this is a really interesting thing. And let me tell you, first off, I searched on keyword SharePoint and NAICS code, and I only got one opportunity in the last 2 fiscal years. Then I got rid of the NAICS code and only SharePoint as a keyword, and I only got 5 opportunities. What this tells me immediately is that SharePoint is being done under some other contract, some other name, whatever it is. And that means I have to do my homework. This is why you have to do research, build relationships into an agency and say, hey, what's going on? And I will tell you, I built a ton of my business at my last company doing SharePoint for the Air Force. I'm like, I don't get it. I know I did tons of millions of dollars, right? Where is that? Literally with the Air Force, I had multiple contracts that are multiple millions of dollars. And I don't see even that level, but I know the Air Force is through and through with SharePoint. So it must be somewhere else. This just tells me I got to go figure it out in a different way. Let me show you how to use FPDS doing something similar. So if we come over here to FPDS, remember Federal Procurement Data System, it always starts at this kind of menu. It's really a not helpful menu to me. So I just hit in there and hit, that's interesting. Something's wrong with, come on, FPDS, you're not working. Why aren't you working? Let's try SharePoint. I don't know if you can see, but it's not working for me. Let me see if I can open up in Chrome really quick, fpds.gov. By the way, if you're wondering if it's live, this is live, and I'm dependent on the government's tools working. There we go. Okay, so this worked. All right, so I searched SharePoint, and so we're off to the races on that. The next thing I want to do is filter down to the Air Force because it's the next easiest thing. So when I came in here, I know I can just come over here to the Air Force under contracting agencies. And by the way, so Air Force is part of Department of Defense, if you don't know this. And that's why the Department of Air Force doesn't show in the departments, because the Department of Air Force's parent department is DOD. I wish all that would change so that Air Force could come higher, but it is what it is. Okay, so now I sorted it by Air Force. The other thing I wanted was fiscal years. So I can come up here to advanced search. Hopefully this will all keep working for me. I'm just going to search within the existing results. I'm going to add another field. And by the way, you want to be learning how to use these tools. I've done previous trainings, but come in here, find the user guide. I've provided the user guide a ton of times, but find the user guide. So here I'm going to say 10/01/2022, which is FY23. And then let's say 9/30/2024. So that's 2 fiscal years. Not all the data is in here yet. They're slow to update it. In fact, there's a 30-day delay just on data being available to public to us. Okay, so let me search this again. I'm going to copy this. You can see there's 18 opportunities. I just want to make sure my searching is matching. So contracts and Air Force fiscal year SharePoint. So they're matching for the most part. FPDS only has contracts basically. And USA spending, the reason I choose contracts is so I don't get all that grant opportunities, et cetera. Well, here's 18, right? So the last time I did it on USA spending, I only got 5. Here I got 18. For the most part, I probably have 18 because in USA spending, it groups it, the modifications and things like that. So there's probably a lot of that going on. And you can see 0. I want to reinforce this though. It doesn't mean the Air Force is not spending. I know for a fact they are spending. And I'm able to come in here and find some of this. But now I can go back and talk to the government about, hey, what's going on? I actually wanted to sort it by action obligation. So, how big is the contracts that are out there? Let me copy this view. So if I go in, and I don't know if you can see all this, sorry. You want to come into FPDS and learn it and get good at this skill. So if I come in here, I can see some basic information that they share right there. But if I click on this word view, it'll open up the actual record. Let me zoom out a teeny bit. And in here, that's funny. I actually know I know that person. If you don't know this, over on the top hand right side or the top right hand side is the contracting officer's name. So I'm able to look in there. That would be perfect, right? I can now use Jimmy to follow up and say, Jimmy, I don't get it. I know you guys are doing SharePoint. Across hundreds of thousands of users, where is it coming? Because when I go to FPDS, I only see, basically 5 to 18 records. And I could begin to work with Jimmy. He could say, oh, let's go here. Let's go there. Let's take a look at it. There's other ways for me to figure this out, and I can come back to it later. But so if I scroll down and I'm looking at some of this information, one of the main things I'm looking for, remember, we're trying to find out, do they buy what I sell and who or where is it bought? And so, yes, they buy SharePoint. In this particular case, it looks like they're not buying a lot, but you can dig into it and have confidence. So if I come down, though, I can see right here that I don't know if this is Space Systems Command. It might be. I don't know. I got to figure those ones out. But this one's interesting, right? I don't know what SMC Atlas is. And I'm not going to do it right now, but I would go explore that. But I certainly would be pursuing this, right? This is the contracting shop. And so tying this together with Jimmy up above, I can start using, and these are DODAX and information that you have here about the government. So you see where it says purchaser information. You can use these to start digging down further. By the way, this is the whole reason you should have a relationship with your PTAC. You can walk in with your PTAC and the government basically funds them, and they will walk you through and try to dig more into this. If you're having trouble there, just let me know or reach out, and we can try to push a little bit. But make sure you talk to your PTACs. Take advantage of that. So if I come down, I can see more information about what's there. But the main thing is right here is SSC. And again, I think this is Space System Command, SharePoint Development and Design. This is encouraging to me as a guy who's looking for SharePoint, because I know, by the way, if you haven't looked, just a quick sidebar, I just shared this morning. This is how I know what SSC is. I mean, I got a general idea, but I just shared out this org chart. Come on, not that one, this one. So Space Systems Command is part of U.S. Space Force, and I just shared this out. And so I can come in and begin to align what I was looking at FPDS and look here. And you see how they got all people's names in here. I can begin to learn. I don't know exactly how they line up yet, but this is the research portion, is that you're looking inside of USA spending and FPDS, et cetera. So let me pause there for 1 second. Just a reminder, right? As you go forward, I want to just show this. You can sit there and search at a high level. So think PSCs, think NAICS codes, or you can search at a niche level. I could do the exact same thing in here if I was looking for, deaf communication, American Sign Language. Does the Air Force spend on it? I don't know. But if I did that, does the word deaf fit? There's more deaf communication contracts than there is the other ones. So this is an interesting thing, though. It shows me that a lot of this activity is going out to this organization. And but I can go in, I can dig into it, and I can begin to find out, if I come down here to the agency details, I can begin to try to find out who can I chase down, this funding office and or this awarding office. How can I chase them down to find out what's going on with this work? Here, it's telling me I can already see that the transaction's not what I want. What I'm looking for is deaf communication or sign language, and this is something different. Okay, so let me get back to my slides. Don't forget to register for that. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. It's a very quick training on using USA spending and FPDS, but if you want to find out, does the Air Force buy what I sell and who buys it, then you need to learn the tools and become experts at these tools. And I was trying to think of some example, but some of us will go out there and become experts at like video games at home and invest a lot of energy into trying to play a video game, right? I don't know if that's you. Maybe you're playing darts, maybe you're drinking, maybe you're doing whatever, right? Maybe you're singing choir at church and you're becoming an expert at that. But if our job is to sell to the federal government, take the time to become an expert. We're going to put out a ton more training in FY25 here, but you can go to those tools and they have guides. That's how I learn. I go in there and I go, well, I don't know how to do this. How do I do it? I try to find a guide, right? My training, I'm trying to speed up the learning. But number one, learn the tools and become an expert. Don't just casually use it. You want to become the go-to among your network. Number two, don't be dependent on me to answer the question that's in there in USA Spending and FPDS. Instead, be able to be the person who has the answers, right? That's a really important thing. If you run into a roadblock, sure, then go to PTAX or to me or to whoever. But first, get rid of that dependency a little bit so then you can be part of the solution in there. And then the last thing is, the way I do this, and I suggest this for you, is spend 30 minutes a day inside of FPDS and USA Spending. If you're responsible for federal sales, that's not a wasted time. And you can get better and better. I'm looking for teammates. Well, who's winning in there? I'm looking for federal buyers. Well, who's buying what I'm selling? Things like that. But 30 minutes a week, really focused time, you will become that expert that your company can depend on in there. Okay, just as we move forward, remember using these tools, it's a process. Government contracting, it definitely is not a secret. It's just a process. Make sure you register for the training tomorrow and come back. I will see you in the next training.